Yo, what it do, YouTube? It's Trail247 Reacts back with another video. We about to do this video today on the shocking truth about pyramids nobody tells you. Interesting video we got today. Y'all hit that like button, that sub button, and that hype button, man. We on the road to 500 subs. If y'all like interesting content like this, let me know in the comment section, bro. Y'all get into it.
Things I was super curious about, because I was actually there last week, is this place.
Giza.
Pyramids of Giza.
The Great Pyramid of Giza. Here we look at it. Attributed to the pharaoh Khufu, who was a pharaoh of...
And this is one of the last probably videos of Graham Hancock, because he's probably about to die, man.
the 4th dynasty.
What is the mystery here? So, again, pyramids are this big stack of like concrete blocks in Egypt. Why is it so mysterious?
Well, first of all, they're not concrete. They're hewn limestone and granite. First of all, it's mysterious for the sheer size of it. Look, so you've got roughly 750 feet along each side, okay? And they vary in length by only fractions of an inch. They've got it just about spot on exact on the side length, and you want that in a pyramid, because if you get it wrong, you're going to end up with a corkscrew rather than a pyramid. If you get it wrong at the bottom, those errors are going to magnify and they're going to get worse and worse, and it's not going to be a pyramid at the end of the day. Secondly, weight calculated at about 6 million tons. More than 2 million individual blocks of stone. I've climbed the pyramid 5 times. Once I climbed it when there was an event taking place on the Giza Plateau, picnics basically, and a lot of Cairenes just decided to climb the pyramid. As I say, I've climbed it 4 other times without other people there, but this time there were hundreds of people on the pyramid. That's when I realized how difficult this thing is to make, because the biggest danger was the other people. Once you're up 2 or 3 courses, you fall, you're dead. It's a 52-degree slope. There's no way you're going to stop. You're going to come down, and still every year people die on the Great Pyramid. That's why they've made it illegal to climb it down. So there's that. Then there's the almost perfect alignment of the Great Pyramid to true north. Not to compass north, which is about 10 or 11 degrees off true north, but to astronomical north, real north. The Great Pyramid is aligned within 3/60ths of a single degree. I put it that way because degrees are divided into 60 minutes, so 3 minutes of arc. The Great Pyramid is aligned to that level of precision, 3/60ths of a single degree to true north. And they've done that on a 6 million ton monument.
My thing is, even if the true date was 4,500 years ago, I'm not gonna lie, them people did not have this type of knowledge of architecture and knowledge of the earth to be doing
which is 481 feet high, if you take account of its original height, which has a 52-degree slope, which is filled with internal corridors and spaces, grand gallery, the ascending, the descending corridors. All of this is extremely difficult to do. It's not impossible to do, because we see that. Could our civilization do it? Yeah, I think we could. But would we do it? No, I don't think we would. The motive wouldn't be there. People say, why? I mean, why do you want to align it perfectly to true north? It's enough to ask me to build a 6 million ton monument, but you want it aligned to true north as well? Come on. I mean, that's a really difficult specification.
People wouldn't even do it.
We'd find that hard. A kind of artistry was put to work on the Great Pyramid as well as skill. Let's get rid of any notion that slaves were involved. They were not.
I bet had that feeling too. Like, slaves did not build the Great Pyramid, bro. Let's be real, bro.
It wasn't slavery in the Old Kingdom anyway, but this is a work of love from the first to the last stone. It's a work done with great skill and care. It's a beautiful and extraordinary thing, both inside and out.
Facts.
It sits almost exactly on latitude 30, which is 1/3 of the way between the North Pole and the equator, and it incorporates the dimensions of the Earth on a scale of 1 to 43.
How did they know this? How did they know this back in ancient times?
1,200 in its own dimensions. So if you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200. I'll explain why that number matters. Multiply it by that number, you get the polar radius of the Earth. Measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by the same factor, 43,200, and you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth.
That is insane, bro.
Archaeologists know this. They say it's a coincidence.
It's
not
not.
a coincidence, just by chance.
It cannot be a
However,
coincidence that
I
they
could
know
agree
these
with them,
numbers,
actually,
bro.
if the scale was not 1 to 43,200. But the fact that it's 1 to 43,200 changes everything, because that belongs to a sequence of numbers that is found in ancient mythology
You
all
see what I
around
was
the
saying?
world. And those numbers are all multiples of the number 72. And I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion the book by the great historian of science, Giorgio de Santillana, professor of the history of science at MIT. He was the first to identify that these numbers and the imagery that go with them derive from a phenomenon called the precession of the equinoxes. I better explain that a little bit. The precession of the equinoxes. Everybody's heard the song, "We live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius." I'm sure you've heard that.
No comment.
We live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That's astrology. At the moment, and for the last 2,000 years, on the spring equinox, the sun has risen against the background of the constellation of Pisces. That's the age of Pisces. We live in the age of Pisces. It's not an accident that the early Christians used the fish as their symbol. The next constellation on the zodiac, when you go backwards around it, is Aquarius. And the precession is actually caused by a wobble on the axis of the Earth. I'm going to pretend that this is the Earth.
Okay.
And instead of just doing this, while it's doing that, it's also doing that. It's wobbling. And that affects the rising time and season at which particular stars rise. It affects two things noticeably. One thing it affects is the pole star. At the moment, the pole star is Polaris. The pole star, this is astronomical north. It's the star towards which the extended north pole of the Earth points most
Shit
directly.
is crazy, bro.
Okay. At present, it's Polaris.
How did
it hasn't
they know
always been
this shit,
Polaris.
bro?
4,000 years ago, it was Thuban in the constellation of Draco. That's because the Earth's axis is doing this. At the horizon, it does the same thing with the zodiacal constellations. We shift gradually through each constellation, lasts about 2,000 years in each constellation. The great year where we come back to square one is just under 26,000 years, 25,920 years is the convention that's applied in ancient mythology. So, the fact that one of those numbers is the scale used to encode the dimensions of the Earth in the Great Pyramid cannot be accidental in my
It
view.
can't
It's
be
a deliberate
accidental,
choice.
bro.
If it was 1 to 57,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. If it was 1 to 21,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. But 1 to 43,200, that's the number of syllables in the Rig Veda, for example. You find this all over the world, everywhere.
So what does that imply or suggest?
What it suggests is that incorporated into the building of the Great Pyramid was knowledge that was not supposed to have existed 4,500 years ago. In fact, knowledge that was not supposed to have existed until 2,000 years ago. Hipparchus of Alexandria is the Greek who was supposed to have discovered precession, but the incorporation of precession in the structure of the Great Pyramid says to me that that knowledge is much older. It was already old
Very
then.
old.
I really want to make sure I'm clear on this precession thing because I'm not super clear.
Yeah.
What does it mean, precession? It means that there's a certain star pattern that we see once every 20,000 years.
It precesses. It goes backwards.
Okay.
The direction through the zodiac is forwards in the normal year, but in the long-term year, because of the wobble, the sun rises against the background of the spring equinox. The sun rises perfectly due east. It always does. It also rises perfectly due east on the autumn equinox. On the summer solstice, the sun rises in the northern hemisphere north of east, and south of east on the winter solstice. The key moment for the ancients was the equinox. It was considered to define the character of the year, and what defined it was the constellation that housed the sun, that was the house of the sun.
Okay, so the star pattern.
Yeah,
Right.
a zodiacal constellation. The constellations of the zodiac lie along what is called the ecliptic, the path of the sun.
Okay.
Okay, the Earth, the Moon, we're all on the ecliptic, within a few degrees above or below it. And therefore, these are constellations that we can see the sun against the background of. constellation like Orion, you'll never see the sun against the background of it. You're only going to see it against the background of the zodiacal constellations that lie on the so-called path of the sun. And those are the 12 familiar constellations.
Yeah, I see Leo.
And as I say, we're living in the age of Pisces right now.
In the age of Pisces, right?
According to ancient astrology, we're going to be making the transition into Aquarius within about the next 150 years. The sun will have left Pisces and will be rising in Aquarius. So actually the song is true. We do live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The only question is whether that means anything or not.
Yeah, for real.
The ancients thought it did. We think it doesn't.
I think it means something.
So I'm going to repeat this back to you to check.
I'm going to just say this. On some real shit, I think it really means something, bro. Like, all these ancient stories that we unheard, they can't all be mythology, bro. They can't all just be fake, bro. Our ancestors, I really feel like were putting down what they could understand, what they could make out with their, not even mouths, because most of the stuff is written or is on cave art and shit. But they tried their best to explain what was going on around them. I feel like our ancestors were crazy. Like, we think of mythology like everybody that spoke of mythology was just crazy people. No. I feel like maybe a lot of mythology might have been real. Because there would be no reason to document it and leave it for future generations. You know what I mean? Like, there's something going on in this world that we can never explain. And I feel like we really are the product of advanced evolution. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video right here. Y'all hit that like button, that sub button, that hype button, man. We on the road to 500 subs, man. We trying to get there, man. Y'all be safe out there, though, man. Real shit.